Ever feel like you're just drowning in information? Like trying to drink from a fire hose every single day?
Oh, definitely. News, breakthroughs, conflicts. It's relentless.
Yeah, how do you even begin to sort through it all? To figure out what actually, matters.
Well, that's where we come in.
Exactly. Think of this deep dive as your shortcut, custom tailored to get you genuinely well-informed, fast.
Welcome. Yeah, our mission today is pretty straightforward. Cut through the noise. We're focusing on just 3 days, July 25th, 26th, and 27th, 2025.
And we've got a real mix of your source material here.
We really do. Everything from PBS, Reuters, major outlets, down to specific industry reports, even some internal notes you provided. We're digging for those crucial nuggets of insight for you.
Maybe even a few surprises along the way. Keep you hooked.
That's the plan.
We're aiming for those aha moments, seeing how different things connect, exploring different angles.
Getting you the key details without the overwhelm.
Exactly. So should we jump in?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting in the U.S., a big policy shift. President Trump signed an executive order on the 25th.
Right, the one expanding forced mental health detentions.
Yeah, basically making it easier to involuntarily place people, particularly aiming at the homelessness crisis.
It's really interesting because it's more than just addressing, what people see on the streets. It's an expansion of federal authority into public health.
And specifically mental health, tied to homelessness.
Exactly. It follows these escalating situations in major cities, concerns about mental illness among the unhoused. Billions could potentially be affected.
Billions of dollars or impacting billions of people.
Oh, sorry. Billions in funding potentially directed, affecting millions of unhoused Americans, my mistake, and state authorities.
Yeah.
They're now under pressure to actually make this work on the ground.
I bet. Because this has kicked up a huge debate, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Mental health advocates, civil liberties groups, they're warning about overreach, violating rights.
But supporters say it's necessary to protect vulnerable people.
That's the argument, yeah. A necessary, if difficult, step. But everyone's expecting legal challenges. This is definitely not settled.
Okay, so sticking with the U.S., but moving to the corporate side, another big decision on the 25th. The FCC approved that Paramount Global and Skydance Media merger.
Right, the $8 billion one. That was a long time coming. Lots of regulatory hurdles.
A huge deal in entertainment. What's the thinking behind it?
Well, it seems pretty strategic. They need to pool their resources, streaming assets, production power, IP.
To compete with the giants. Netflix, Disney, Amazon.
Precisely. And even, those new AI video platforms popping up, competition is incredibly fierce. This merger is expected to really reshape the U.S. media scene, creating a much bigger player.
But the critics, what are they worried about?
The usual consolidation concerns, really. Less competition, potentially hurting smaller studios, maybe fewer distinct voices or shows.
While the companies themselves say it boosts production scale, international reach.
Yeah, that's the line. Enhanced scale, better global footing. It's that classic tension. Efficiency and scale versus competition and diversity of content.
Okay, shifting gears quite dramatically now. A really disturbing event on July 27th. That mass stabbing at a Walmart in northern Michigan.
Awful news. 11 people wounded, several critically.
Authorities caught the suspect quickly, though. And they're pursuing terrorism charges.
Yes, based on evidence of premeditation, and they mentioned possible extremist motives.
It speaks to those warnings we keep hearing, right? About lone wolf attackers, radicalization online.
It really does. Law enforcement has been highlighting this risk, and the reaction, understandably, was shock, grief. Officials are pledging more security, more investment in mental health and violence prevention.
A local tragedy with national implications.
Definitely.
And speaking of consequences, accountability. Former Congressman George Santos started his prison sentence on July 26th.
Right, 7 years. Medium security facility.
For wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, defrauding donors, misusing campaign money.
This case raises a really important question for a lot of experts.
Which is?
How effective is the oversight of campaign finance and transparency in Congress? Many see the Santos case as, emblematic of broader issues.
So calls for tougher ethics laws.
On one side, yes. But then you also hear concerns about selective prosecution. Was he singled out? It's a complex reaction.
Okay, let's broaden our view now. Shift focus to the global stage. The crisis in Gaza. Reports from July 26th and 27th were incredibly grim.
Truly devastating. Humanitarian agencies reported rising deaths just from hunger. 5 people in one day, including an infant, from malnutrition.
Just staggering. And on top of that, more deaths from the conflict itself.
Yes, 42 more killed in airstrikes or clashes,
Right.
and tragically, half of those were reportedly killed while just waiting for aid.
Unbelievable. What was Israel's response during this period?
Well, they initiated some airdrops of humanitarian aid and said they were opening more corridors for food delivery.
But the aid agencies, Save the Children, others,
Oh.
they weren't convinced.
They described the conditions as catastrophic, especially for children, nursing mothers. And critics, including the UN, called the airdrops simply inadequate, dangerous even, not a sustainable solution.
And this was happening alongside Israel expanding its military operations, a ground invasion starting late July.
That's right. Following weeks of escalating conflict and barrages, it just intensified everything.
This is a dire situation.
It really is. And the global debate just got louder. Critics accusing Israel of disproportionate force not protecting civilians.
While Israel defends its actions as necessary to dismantle terrorist infrastructure.
Correct. But the risk of broader regional instability, the impact on humanitarian norms, is huge. And international opinion is becoming even more polarized.
Amidst all this, a significant diplomatic move from France. On July 25th, President Macron announced France would formally recognize the state of Palestine.
Yes, at the upcoming UN General Assembly. That's a definite break from previous EU policy.
And it's framed as a response to the Gaza crisis.
Directly linked, yes.
Yeah.
A response to the mounting humanitarian disaster.
What was the immediate reaction?
Swift and pretty sharp. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio condemned it immediately, said it only serves Hamas propaganda.
And Israel.
Prime Minister Netanyahu accused France of rewarding terrorism. So analysts are saying this could really strain France's ties with both Israel and the U.S.
And potentially lead other European countries to follow.
That's the speculation. It could signal a wider shift in how Western Europe approaches Palestinian statehood recognition.
Okay, let's move over to Southeast Asia. Tensions flared up there too. Cambodia and Thailand agreed to ceasefire talks on July 27th.
Right, after some violent border clashes between the 25th and 26th.
And U.S. Secretary Rubio was involved in mediating.
Apparently played a role, yes. The root cause is familiar. Disputed land, resource rights along the border.
How bad did the fighting get?
Pretty serious. Accusations of cluster munitions being used, 16 civilians sadly killed, and maybe 80,000 people displaced.
So the mediation was seen as a positive step.
Generally, yes. A success for regional diplomacy, hopefully easing the immediate humanitarian crisis and tensions. Regional bodies, other powers were all calling for restraint.
And turning to Africa, ongoing instability in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yeah.
An attack on July 27th.
Yes. Suspected ADF militants attacked a church in Komanda, Ituri province. At least 38 civilians killed, more displacement.
And this followed other militia clashes just days before.
Correct. On the 25th, 2 different Mai groups clashed, apparently over control of agricultural routes. Thousands displaced there, too.
The ADF are linked to ISIS, right?
Yeah.
But these local clashes.
They often reflect this broader fragmentation. It's driven by survival, economics, and just a weak government presence in many areas. It's not always purely ideological.
So these attacks just highlight how fragile things are.
Exactly. Underscores the fragility, fuels more calls for stronger UN and regional intervention to protect people and try to stabilize things. It's a really complex mix of local and sort of global factors.
Let's shift now to the environment and the impact of climate change. Catastrophic wildfires in Turkey and Greece around this time, July 25th to 27th.
Just devastating. Over 1,000 people reported killed, thousands of acres destroyed.
And this is linked to the heat waves and drought.
Absolutely. Years of that have made the whole Mediterranean region incredibly vulnerable. These fires are, well, stark evidence of accelerating climate threats.
And governments are facing criticism.
A lot of criticism, yes. For insufficient prevention, slow emergency response. It raises big questions about climate adaptation.
You're bringing that climate impact back to the U.S. A massive heat wave during those same days, July 25th to 27th.
Record-setting, affecting over 170 million Americans, feels like temperatures soaring past 110 Fahrenheit in many places.
It must have put immense strain on infrastructure.
Huge strain. Officials scrambling to keep power grids stable, open cooling centers, provide aid.
And it reignites the debate over climate policy.
Of course. National climate policy, infrastructure investment, how fast we're really moving on renewables, grid upgrades. And, something often missed is how these events hit older infrastructure, especially in underserved communities, much harder. It just widens existing inequalities.
That's a really important point. So climate impacts, infrastructure strain. That must feed into the economy.
Yeah.
What did the markets look like around July 25th?
Things moderated a bit. Global markets had seen some gains, but sentiment got dampened.
Why? Disappointing corporate reports.
That was part of it, yeah. And some ambiguity around what central banks might do next. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ had hit records recently, but then you had companies like Tesla, IBM, United Health, Intel.
Even European ones like Puma, Vallejo.
Right, issuing cautious profit warnings. So a bit of a reality check, maybe.
And attention shifted to central banks.
Definitely. The European Central Bank held rates at 2%, and hopes for U.S. Federal Reserve rate cuts seemed to be fading.
So analysts were seeing slower momentum ahead.
Particularly in tech and industrial sectors, yeah. Warnings that those record highs might face some turbulence.
Meanwhile, in England, a major disruption in public service. That doctor's strike started July 25th.
Historic, yeah. 5 days, the longest strike of its kind in NHS history.
And the core issue is pay. They claim a big real-term cut over the years.
A 20% real-term pay cut since 2008, that's their claim. Huge grievance.
How did it impact services?
Emergency rooms stayed open, but routine care suspended, which of course made existing long wait times even worse.
And the government isn't budging on pay.
Not so far, which has blown up into a much bigger debate about the whole future of the NHS. Its viability calls for major reform. It's a real flashpoint.
Across the pond, another big public service institution, the U.S. Postal Service, marked an anniversary.
250 years on July 26th. Quite a milestone.
But celebrating amidst a major financial crisis, it almost feels ironic.
It does, doesn't it? But what's fascinating is how the USPS, despite the money troubles and, let's face it, a somewhat dated image for some, is still this battleground.
A battleground for what?
For what a public service even is in the digital age. It's not just about letters anymore. It's about universal access, especially for rural areas, small businesses. Can a nonprofit entity survive in this commercial world?
And there's no consensus on how to fix it. Funding, delivery times, those controversial automation plans.
Still huge debates. Everyone agrees it's vital, but how to safeguard its future? That's the multi-billion-dollar question.
And another U.S. challenge, funding cuts hitting national parks. By July 27th, the impacts were being felt.
Yeah, reports of significant drops in tourism revenue, layoffs in communities near the parks.
Plus warnings about long-term damage to the parks themselves. Deferred maintenance.
Exactly. Damage to habitats. It highlights that constant tension, balancing federal budgets with protecting these, irreplaceable national treasures. How much are we willing to invest?
It affects local economies, but also our national heritage.
Absolutely. The debate continues.
And one more funding issue bubbling up in July. Potential cuts to NIH grants, specifically diversity-focused ones.
Right. The National Institutes of Health. The U.S. government was considering sweeping budget reductions targeting those programs.
What's the argument there?
Well, supporters of the cuts argue for a strictly merit-based approach. They criticize using identity-based criteria.
And the opponents?
They warn it could reverse decades of progress. Progress in tackling underrepresentation in science and addressing health disparities that affect specific communities.
So the scientific community is pushing back.
They're mobilizing, yes, arguing that diversity-driven research actually leads to better, more inclusive, and ultimately more effective science for everyone.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground on Earth. Let's look up now to some amazing science news. This third interstellar object, 3 IATLs.
Yes. Awareness really picked up in early July, but follow-up observations were being publicized right around this period, July 25th to 27th. It's only the third confirmed visitor from outside our solar system.
After Oumuamua and Comet Borisov, what do we learn from these?
So much. They give us actual observations of materials from other star systems. It helps us understand how planets form elsewhere.
Like getting a piece of mail from another star.
Exactly. Funding agencies jumped on prioritizing follow-up observations, and the public excitement was huge. It really shows the power of citizen science and these alert systems, too.
And another mind-bending discovery, LIGO Virgo Cagra. They announced the most massive black hole merger ever seen.
On July 13th, with analysis continuing, creating a final black hole over 225 times the mass of our sun. Just enormous.
How did that change things?
Well, it really challenges our models,
Right.
especially how black holes of that specific mass range form. There's this theoretical gap where they shouldn't easily form from collapsing stars.
So this discovery might mean what?
It suggests the universe might have other ways, maybe more exotic ways, to build these supermassive black holes, perhaps in really dense star clusters. It could reshape our whole understanding of black hole evolution. Huge stuff for astrophysics.
Okay, back down to Earth again. Sports and entertainment. LIV Golf was holding its UK event during these dates, July 25th to 27th.
Right, at JCB Golf and Country Club. Big names like John Rahm, Brooks Koepka,
Yeah.
a $20 million purse.
But the controversy around LIV continues. The Saudi funding.
Oh, absolutely. It's still a major talking point. Some fans see it as the slick, disruptive force shaking up traditional golf.
A different kind of viewing experience.
Maybe, but the critics are relentless, questioning its legitimacy, its impact on the sports economics, the ethics of it all. The tension between LIV and the PGA Tour is still very much alive.
And sticking with entertainment, San Diego Comic-Con was happening then too, July 25th to 27th.
Still a huge hub, even though Marvel skipped it this year, and DC had a smaller presence than usual.
But still, plenty of announcements.
Oh, yeah. Trailers, panels, Peacemaker Season 2, a new Friday the 13th movie, The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon Season 3, a Rick and Morty spinoff for Season 8.
So fandom is alive and well.
Definitely. It showed the power of these franchises. And industry watchers noted Comic-Con is evolving, less purely comics, more broad entertainment marketing.
And George Lucas and Guillermo del Toro were there.
Yeah, previewing the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art, so still pulling in the big names and signaling its cultural importance.
And on the international sports scene, the World University Games wrapped up.
Yes, the XX Heavens Summer World University Games in Germany's Rhine-Ruhr region concluded on July 27th. Massive event.
How many athletes?
Over 7,000 athletes, 113 nations, 18 sports. Really impressive scale and organization.
So it's a platform for rising stars, future Olympians.
Absolutely. A vital stepping stone for many athletes who don't always get the spotlight. And of course, big economic and cultural benefits for the host cities in Germany.
Okay, finally, this is really fascinating. A K-pop development with geopolitical ripples. The debut of a new boy band, One Verse.
On July 26, yeah. What made it unique was that it featured 2 defectors from North Korea.
Wow. How was that received?
Immediately and intensely divided. In South Korea, massive celebration, seen as a message of hope, reunification, a cultural bridge.
But in North Korea?
Condemnation.
Yeah.
Pure anti-state propaganda, they called it. And they retaliated border closures, threats of missile tests.
So even pop culture becomes a flashpoint.
It starkly underlines the volatility, doesn't it? How K-pop can be both outreach and a trigger for hostility. Shows just how deep the political divide runs, even touching entertainment.
Wow. Okay, so
Oh.
what does this all mean? We've covered an incredible amount in just 3 days. Policy, conflict, climate, science, culture.
We really have zoomed around the globe, haven't we?
It feels like it.
Yeah.
But this deep dive, it gives you such a snapshot, right? A world just constantly churning, and you really see how interconnected everything is. Things that seem totally separate aren't.
Absolutely. And that's the real value, I think. Understanding these different threads helps you grasp that constant push and pull between domestic issues and global events.
How local stuff often has global roots, and vice versa.
Exactly. And in this age of nonstop information, thinking critically, questioning assumptions, looking at different perspectives, it's just essential, especially when you see how intertwined it all is.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and thank you for listening, for being curious enough to explore the world with us.
It's always a pleasure. And maybe leave you with a final thought to chew on.
Go for it.
Consider how the stories emerging from just these 3 intense days about government power or cosmic wonders or tragic conflicts aren't just reporting what happened. They might actually be shaping how we understand the future, what we think is possible, and what's really at stake in this deeply, deeply connected world.